Hey guys, here we are, and this week we are going to be talking about the social construction of race. So, what does it mean that race is a social construction? I remember the first time I heard this theory and I thought, what the heck? That makes no sense to me because clearly people are different. We can tell people are different based off of the way that they look, right? So, how could you say race is a social construction? Well, let's dissect this a little bit. First of all, why did we decide that skin color is the reason why we should stratify people? Well, it's easy to identify people based off of skin color, correct? Like, why wouldn't we just go off of eye color or shoe size? I don't know if any of you have ever watched the video of the teacher Jane Elliott that did the experiment within her classroom where instead of separating kids off of their skin color, she did it off of their eye color, and how quickly the kids started to take on these prejudicial attitudes towards each other. So when we say that race is a social construction, we're saying that it's something that society has done in order to differentiate people. And the concept of race has changed over time. It used to be that people were, one drop of black blood made you black, and now we have this spectrum, and it changes across societies and cultures. For example, in Brazil, there are many different ways of classifying somebody as being black, even different words that are used in the language. So the other thing that we're going to look at is a difference between race and ethnicity. Ethnicity is shared culture. This sort of thing, when I talk about culture, and we're talking about language and symbols and values and beliefs and things like holidays and observances and practices. And ethnicity can be fluid, so you can move to a different culture and identify with a different culture. Race is not the same way. Now, we also have stereotypes, prejudice, and discrimination, and the difference between the two is stereotypes are overgeneralizations about entire groups of people, where prejudice are more rigid, fixed attitudes, and then when you move into discrimination, discrimination becomes an action. So I can say to you, well, I don't like female students. But once I start giving female students lower grades than male students, that's when it moves into discrimination. So you can have prejudicial attitudes and not actually discriminate against people. And let's be honest, all of us are racist in some way, and all of us have prejudices. And we can argue about whether or not stereotypes can ever be positive. If I come to you and say all Asian students do awesome in math, is that true? I mean, it sounds like a positive stereotype, right? But what happens if you're Asian and you don't do well in math? So it's as sociologists, we would argue it's never fair or correct to lump entire groups into one fixed system. Also, something that as sociologists we do is we acknowledge this concept of white privilege, and so that's something that can be really hard for students to digest, because if I say, well, we have white privilege, people think, well, you're obviously saying that, you hate white people. No, I don't hate white people. That's not what I'm saying at all. I mean, look at me. I'm clearly white myself. However, being white gives us a certain amount of privilege. So just not even using the word white, it's very common for people to say, oh, I'm going to go hang out with my black friend, but we don't usually qualify people saying, oh, I'm going to go hang out with my white friend. So there's all kinds of privileges attached to being white, which we won't dive into too much in this class, but it really is an interesting concept when you think about it. And it's not to say that, oh, whites are better. We're just saying that, just being white comes with certain privileges. You can walk down the street and not have people question your motives. Or you're never asked to speak for your entire group of people. Another thing is that personal prejudice has declined greatly in our country, but we still have institutionalized racism built into our systems. And when people ask about whether or not we should still have affirmative action programs, because of the fact that we have such a strong history of racism and segregation, there are still unfair situations and circumstances for people. So until the playing field becomes more level, a lot of us would argue that we do still need affirmative action programs. Also, when you think about it, has really not been that long since our laws are changed. So it was anti-miscegenation laws were only struck down in 1967. So in a bunch of states, you couldn't even marry outside of your race until 1967. Think about that. That really wasn't that long ago. Okay, so we have shifted more towards, we moved from religious-based discrimination and then racism, and then we moved to a scientific basis for racism. Scientists were arguing that there are biological differences between the races that made one group better than the other group. There's a great documentary on PBS about the social construction of race, and they actually performed DNA testing and found out that there was more difference within groups than there was outside of groups with DNA. So I could have a DNA test with another white female and then have a DNA test with a black female, and there's more differences with me and the white female in DNA than me and the black female in DNA. So a lot of us would argue that we all come from the same group, and it depends on the geographical location, that's the reason why we have variations in skin color. So just basically, in a nutshell, I just want you to really consider how the race is a social construction, how we make race important because it's a way of stratifying people. And the only reason it's important is because society has made it important. And if we didn't have racism built into our systems, would we really find differences across groups of people? So kind of a lot to absorb. I posted a video, a Dave Chappelle video that I think is hilarious and arguably grossly inappropriate. However, it's a really great way of understanding the social construction of race. So that's a lot to get in, but have a great week and let me know if you have any issues.